LinkedIn can be one of the most unhealthy places for your sense of peace if you start comparing yourself to all the other people on there. Spend any time on LinkedIn lately and afterwards find yourself really stressed out? Well, you're not alone. I coach a lot of professionals in tech, and many of them struggle with exactly this. Well, in this episode, I'd like to share some things with you that I've learned can really reduce your stress and help you have much better mental health if you choose to use LinkedIn and you need it to find a job or just to network with people. And hey, if you are trying to use LinkedIn and you're struggling a little bit, you're not sure how to use it, you need to build a strong network and land your next job, I actually have a career coaching package that helps with exactly this. I've used it with quite a few clients over the years and they get pretty good results. If that's interesting to you, check it out. There's a link in the description on YouTube, or if you're listening as a podcast, there's a link in the show notes. So here's 5 ways that you can stay calm on LinkedIn, use it effectively, but not have it create a lot of anxiety for you. And hey, by the way, if you're short on time, I've got chapter markers in the video if you're on YouTube, but if you're listening to this as a podcast, just stick with me. I'll explain all this to the end. The first thing that can really help you stay more calm if you're using LinkedIn and you're finding yourself stressed out is to avoid accomplishment signals. Many people use LinkedIn to basically just brag about their accomplishments. I just sold my first company at 22, or I just got a huge promotion and a giant pay raise, or look at this certification that I just achieved. And while I get it, if you just achieved something, you might be excited to share it with people. You can actually get a feeling, and I've experienced this and many of my clients have, the moment that you start scrolling that news feed or that homepage on LinkedIn, a sinking feeling that your career sucks or you're not doing as well as you wish you were. And this is one of the things that I really recommend a lot of people do is bookmark on their desktop on LinkedIn, whether you're using a Mac or a PC, go to LinkedIn and bookmark your profile page, not the home page of LinkedIn. So every time you go to LinkedIn, instead of going directly to LinkedIn.com and you see, again, all these accomplishments that people have, you can just go to your profile page, then use it, from there, use the search to find the things you're looking for. If you've got the app installed, I often just tell people uninstall the app. Now, if you are a recruiter or somebody who really has to use LinkedIn for some reason, in real time, answering messages all the time as part of your job, sure, keep the app installed. But for most of us, even if you're trying to get a job right now, you're trying to network with people don't expect these days instantaneous responses on LinkedIn. If you want to keep your mental health in a good spot, you want to stay calm, you want to be chill and not have LinkedIn create a bunch of stress and anxiety for you, get rid of the app, bookmark your profile page, go there intentionally, and don't get sucked into viewing all this other stuff people are doing. You may have heard the saying, it's much better to compare yourself to where you were yesterday and how you've grown than to compare yourself to other people. This is a popular saying with a lot of online influencers. I don't know where it originally came from, but it's true. LinkedIn can be one of the most unhealthy places for your sense of peace if you start comparing yourself to all the other people on there. The second thing you can do that'll really help you stay calm while you're using LinkedIn is to use LinkedIn and produce content on LinkedIn, but not consume content on LinkedIn. Gary Vaynerchuk, you may or may not have heard of him, really big YouTuber and kind of social media influencer. I don't always agree with him. He's kind of associated with hustle culture, which obviously my brand is somewhat against on some levels, but he's got a lot of really good things to say. He has taught a lot of really good things over the years. And one of them is this concept of produce versus consume. He's at least the first person I heard of who came up with this concept. So I attribute it pretty much to him. And really the idea is that when you're going online, most people are there just consuming. They're watching videos. They're reading people's blog posts. They're consuming people's Instagram posts or photos. But it's the people that produce content. They're creating original posts. They're creating videos. They're writing articles and, blog posts. Those are the people who actually get a benefit from going online. They grow an audience. They get influence. They can hopefully get better jobs. They may be able to build their business if they're starting one, like I am. So when you're on LinkedIn, keep this principle in mind. Rather than using LinkedIn, it's a social network. Remember how LinkedIn probably wants you to, which is just to be browsing around and reading articles and looking at what other people are doing in their career and getting sucked into news headlines, which, I think there's also some very unsettling news on LinkedIn that takes away your contentment, your personal peace. You want to stay chill. Don't be reading the news on LinkedIn, but rather, tied to the previous point I just gave you about bookmarking your profile page and having that be somewhat of the home page you go to in your browser when you visit LinkedIn. There's a search bar right at the top. And so if you're there and you want to find jobs, just go to the profile page, your profile page. You won't then see anybody else's activity and search for jobs or search for people that you want to connect with. Search for specific topics that you want to find information on LinkedIn. Let's say you're an independent consultant and you offer DevOps services or something like that. And you want to find out what are some of the latest posts on LinkedIn about DevOps. Just search for it. So, one of the biggest things you can do to more responsibly use LinkedIn is to produce and write your own posts and be there intentionally and write your own articles. Don't consume. And hey, I've talked about it in another episode on the show. You can go back and watch it. If you're on YouTube, I'll put a card up there. If you're listening as a podcast, I'll put a link, in the show notes. But I did an episode earlier about if you're a developer, if you're in technology, how to use social media to actually drive, let's say sales of your product or consulting or get a job versus how a lot of people do it. And this point I'm just talking about, using LinkedIn and not consuming. If you watch that episode or listen to it, it'll expand on this point a lot more and give you some even more practical things that you can do so that you don't waste your time online just consuming content and wasting, what you could be using towards growing your career, getting ahead, and finding peace and living your life. The third thing you can do that will really help you stay calm when you're using LinkedIn is don't get sucked into engaging in rage bait. You may have heard this term. It's kind of a more incendiary version of clickbait, but rage bait is when people basically create content to piss you off, to get you worked up, to get you to have a strong, angry, usually emotional reaction with the hopes that you'll engage with it. You'll leave a comment. You'll get angry. You'll share it with someone else. And this kind of content is also really popular on YouTube. I find myself struggling because I have to create titles and thumbnails that still people will click amidst all this noise without hopefully rage baiting you. I try not to do that. But, if you see articles that are like bitching about, let's say, the tech industry or the way managers are treating programmers, I know I've done content on that. Be careful on LinkedIn, because if you leave comments, if you like those things, anyone who's thinking of hiring you for a job, an employer, a recruiter, a hiring manager, if you're a consultant, clients that might want to work with you. If you're a business, you're selling, a small software product, you're going on your own. I've done episodes on that on the past on the show. People can look at your activity on LinkedIn unless you've turned it off publicly. You may or may not know this. If you go to your profile page, scroll down a little bit, there's a section there that says activity. And if your profile's public, typically people can go there by default and they can view your activity. So they can see the incendiary posts that you have commented on, that you've liked. And if you don't feel like you want, look, we're all frustrated with aspects of the tech industry, but let's be honest. We need to keep those opinions private for the most part. Letting someone who you're about to do business with or an employer is considering hiring you see how frustrated you are with the industry, it's not a good look. So I would just, suggest And it's going to be easier to do this if you're not, again, scrolling the news feed and reading news, but if you're just going to your profile page and being intentional. Don't get sucked into rage bait. Don't comment and like on things that you really resonate with, but that really are not good breadcrumb trails, so to speak, to leave for your next employer or client. And hey, if you've struggled a lot to use LinkedIn and you're thinking, am I alone here? Am I the only one who gets depressed even sometimes? I've got a Patreon and a YouTube membership you can join. And for a very, very low per month price, you can get into my private Discord server. I've got a lot of other really great people, other developers, managers, product managers, people in QA, people starting their own companies who are fans of this channel and that are also trying to have, healthy careers, help each other thrive. If you'd like to be part of that community, you'd like to have some other people who kind of share similar values of the channel, check it out. You can join. There's a link in the description. The fourth thing you can do that'll really help you stay calm on LinkedIn and not experience a ton of anxiety is to not attend unjustified meetings. What I mean by this is, depending on where you're at in your career, you may not get as much of this as I do, but, even before I started doing YouTube when I was a consultant, I would regularly on a daily basis get DMs, direct messages from people on LinkedIn. And they'd be like, hey, Jamie, love what you're doing in consulting. I think there's some real synergy between us. Let's hop on a quick Zoom call. I'd like to share with you, how we could work together. And I find this is a pattern I'm seeing over and over again where people who are looking for someone to do business with them, they don't know how to start the conversation in a calm way. They just jump for the jugular, let me get this person on a call. And, my time's very valuable. Your time's very valuable as a developer. If you're a manager, just whatever your job is, right? Our time is valuable. And if you want to keep your mental health chill, you don't want to be just hopping on random calls with people that promise that there might be some real big synergy. I get this all the time. Hey, Jamie, love your podcast. Let's hop on a call. I think there's some real synergy where I could help you. Or, hey, Jamie, I can grow your coaching business to $80,000 a month. Yeah, sure you can, bud. Sure. There's so many people claiming that. But what I typically do is either I ignore them or I might just say, hey, can you explain to me a little bit more about why you see there's synergy there before we hop on a call? I can't really just jump on a Zoom with anybody I don't know. And I'd say 50% of the time, they don't even respond because they're like, oh shit, I don't want to explain myself to this guy. But the other 50% of the time, then they'll go into more detail. Yeah, well, I work for this company. We offer XYZ. And I thought maybe if we talk together, maybe there's a way to partner. And if I know that that's not going to help me, I probably can't help them, then I can just tell them, hey, sorry, I don't really see synergy there. Thanks anyways. And I don't have to waste my time on a 15-minute call or a 20-minute call. So, this is something you're going to run into as an employee when recruiters contact you too. They're going to be like, hey, John, I saw your profile and you'd be the perfect fit for this company. Let's hop on a quick Zoom call and discuss it. I really think you should pre-qualify any kind of recruiter or hiring manager or anyone and just ask them, hey, I'm really busy, really thankful that you're reaching out to me. I appreciate that. Could you explain a little bit more what you see as the match here? What specific skills or about my, past career do you see aligned with this opportunity, before we hop on a call? That'll avoid you, again, getting on a call with a recruiter or a hiring manager or somebody who's going to try to convince you that this is the perfect job for you when you can often figure that out before you waste your time. So again, you want to keep yourself low stress and chill on LinkedIn. Don't attend meetings that people haven't justified to you are worth your time first. And the fifth and final thing I'd really recommend you consider if you want to have a calm time when you're on LinkedIn is to keep your network relevant. It's very tempting to just accept any friend request that you get, or connection request, I guess they call them, on LinkedIn. Hey, they'll give you a comment. Really love your work. Let's connect. Hey, don't really need to talk with you about anything, but I'd love to have you in my network if something comes up. You may or may not know people who do stuff in your network, they post a new article, they switch their job. By default, unless you turn it off, LinkedIn will notify you when that happens. And again, I suggested you get the app off your phone if you want to have more peace around LinkedIn. But if you do have the app installed, the bigger your network, the more spam you're going to get. Now, I would probably say if you have to have the app, turn notifications off, or there's actually a setting you can go in there and you can turn notifications off specifically for your other connections activity. But regardless, I see a lot of people who have, 500,000 people or 200,000 people following them that are really kind of a no-name in the industry. They've just used LinkedIn to amass a giant following, and they don't really do anything with that following. It's just a vanity metric. You've heard this term. It's a number that makes them look important, but is not actually a true indication of their reach. I would just encourage you to avoid the temptation to feel pressured to have to grow your, connections to this huge amount. There was a time earlier on LinkedIn when you created a post that it was pretty much guaranteed to go to everyone in your connections. So if you're looking for a job, you're trying to spread, cool blog posts you wrote about technology or management or whatever, you were guaranteed everybody was going to at some point see that post if they scrolled their news feed. Today, LinkedIn is pretty much the same as Facebook and YouTube and Instagram and Twitter, and that, when you post something, it's only shown to like 3%, maybe 15% of your followers, your connections. And only if it gets a ton of engagement, which is why people tend to, do the rage baiting and stuff like that, will it actually spread it out to everyone else, because they want you to pay for advertising to reach the people who are already following you. Anyway, won't rant about that too much. I get frustrated about that. But I would just encourage you, if you want to stay calm on LinkedIn, keep your network small. Don't connect with people that you don't have an existing real work relationship with, either currently or in the past, or someone you really have intentional plans to do business with in the future, or you see them as becoming a client or something like that. The less people that you're connected to, the more peace you can have, the less spam you're going to get. And then you can use LinkedIn and actually get results from it and not have LinkedIn use you. So, hey, if you're struggling to get your next job and LinkedIn has been an issue for you, maybe your profile needs a makeover, maybe you don't really know how to build a strong network of people that could hire you that are at great companies, I have a career coaching package that helps with exactly that. If you're on YouTube, you can click a link in the description and check it out. Otherwise, if you're listening as a podcast, you can check out the link in the show notes. I've got a page on my website that talks about it in a lot more detail. But what are you struggling with LinkedIn? Has this even been a problem for you? Or are you like, Jamie, what are you talking about? LinkedIn doesn't bother me at all. If you don't use it at all, well, I get it. But, are you struggling with it at all? Do you have any stories of times you've been on LinkedIn and you've started to feel that feeling of, oh my gosh, I'm not as good as I thought I was. My career's behind. What do I do? What have you done to combat that? I hope some of these tips have helped today. Until next time, thanks.